page 32. Yesterday we had asked about this Rashi, that Perek Zayin, Posuk Zayin, 3 lines from the bottom. It says, Vayavo Noach ubanav ve'ishto sheva ital teva mipnei me'amabel. So we had read the Rashi yesterday that he entered only because the water started coming down. And we said yesterday that shows he's Miktane Amana. Ktane Amana means he's a man of, there's a faith flaw. And Noach is Miktane Amana, there's a man of little faith. So we're talking about what does that mean as a man of little faith. So one of the optimistic approaches is that Noach was hoping that he couldn't believe that there's nobody who's done tshuva. You can't believe nobody did tshuva? What, in all these years, there isn't one more. All we need is one guy to make a minyan of 10. Remember I told you the story? There was I heard this from Rabbi Tatz many years ago. There was a woman in one of the ghettos during World War II, and she was pregnant, and she had to get to a woman's doctor. So she left the ghetto. Somehow she was able to get out of the ghetto, or maybe the ghetto wasn't closed yet. Maybe this. I'm not sure what the circumstances were, but she went to a German woman doctor, non-Jewish. And this woman said to her, she examined her, whatever. She says, "Okay, you can't go back to the ghetto because they're going to be annihilating the ghetto soon. So I'll hide you." The woman said, "I'll hide you. You stay by me, but you can't go back to the ghetto." She said, "Well, I can't because I have a husband." So she said, "So bring your husband, I'll hide both of you." He says, "Well, I have parents." So bring your parents. He says, "Well, my husband has parents." Bring his parents. I have siblings, he has siblings. She ended up, I think it was 22 or 24 people that she hid for about a year. It was about a year and a half. She hid 22 or 24 people. They all survived, the whole family, the whole nuclear family survived. About 50 years later, this woman who was pregnant, the young lady who was pregnant, 50 years later, she and her husband, they were living in America at this point. She, her husband, her children, her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. So somebody said, and there were over 200 descendants from the family now, from the nuclear family. This woman, there were now over 200 descendants. Somebody said, maybe that woman doctor who saved us, maybe she's still alive. So they actually went back to Germany, and they found her. She was in her 90s already. And they flew her into America for this family celebration. And they said to her, "Look, this is what you accomplished." They showed her 200 descendants of the family that she saved. This is what you accomplished. So somebody said to her, "Why did you do it?" So she said, "I remember the biblical story of Abraham, that he was looking for 10 righteous people to save the entire city of Sodom. So I thought maybe I could find 9 others like myself, and maybe we could save Germany from destruction." He says, apparently there weren't. That's what she said, right? So there was, that Noach, according to that opinion, Noach was an optimist, right? He was hoping he'd find 10 people. Maybe we could open it. Oh, it is open. Okay, don't turn on the air yet. What do you call it? That's as far, now, there's another approach here that says like this. Remember I gave you the example yesterday about if there was martial law and they said anybody who's out after 6 o'clock gets shot, right? So if you really believed that at 6 o'clock there's martial law, you'd be in your house long before 6 o'clock. We wouldn't take a chance that any of the guards that they forgot to reset their time to after daylight savings time, that they changed their clock. You wouldn't want to make a mistake at 5 o'clock. Maybe one of these guys, by him it's still 5 o'clock, or it was him at 7 o'clock. So you'd be in your house long before that. Okay. So the Gemara makes the following statement. The Gemara says, and this is a Stipler's idea, the Stipler says that there's a statement in the Gemara, 2 statements. One of them is that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was on his deathbed. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to his Talmidim, said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, "Give us a bracha." Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the Gadol Ador. So the Talmidim said, "Give us a bracha." So Rabbi Yochanan said, "Okay, I give you a bracha. You should fear God as much as you fear man." So they said, "That's it?" So he said, "Halavai, if only you get to that level. It'll be wonderful if you get to that level." Why? Because when a person sins, you look around and you say, "Nobody's watching me." What about God? Yeah, God, I'll work it out. Me and God are like this. He knows my Yetzer Hara. He created me. I got all the rationalization. With people, we're on our better behavior when around people. What does that mean? That means even if we know something intellectually, we respond more to the tangible. When something's tangible, it has more effect. And the real proof, that's why I said, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai's blessing was that I hope you fear God the way you fear man. Right? Because sometimes when a person, when they say you want to speak Lashon Hara about somebody, what do? I don't see him around. And I say, yeah, but look up. God's listening. What happened to Hashem? Well, he's not here and he's not here, so I could say, well, what about Hashem? Hashem's watching. Hashem is watching. That's not, we know it, we believe it, but it's still when something more tangible. And the real proof, right after Shmuel turns on the air conditioning, the real proof is, thanks Shmuel, the real proof is I can't take airlessness. I don't need cold, I just need some air movement. You know what I mean? I can't take it. It feels like I'm in a vacuum. The real proof is another statement. The Gemara says, Kol shekois, a person who gets angry, kol hakois, kol mine gehenim sholtim bo. Person who gets angry will suffer all sorts of gehennims. I mean, no gehennim is a party, right? But a person who gets angry will suffer all various forms of torture, torment in gehennim. This is bad, right? Then the Gemara says, and not only that, he'll get hemorrhoids. Now, between me and you, in the grand scheme of things, which is worse? Right. So in the grand scheme of things, Gehenna is far worse. There's no question about it. If your father, you got nailed, you got a speeding ticket, you were doing 40 miles an hour over, and your dad is telling you what's happening to you. So your father says to you, first of all, you're grounded for 3 weeks. And second of all, you're not getting lemon meringue pie for dessert tonight. Lemon meringue pie I could deal with, right? We don't upgrade to a lower level. The way your father would say is, first of all, you're not getting lemon meringue pie tonight. And second of all, buddy, you're grounded for 3 weeks. That's how he would say it. He's not about to go because it's like telling a guy in jail. I never understood this guy. Some guy's a murderer, so they give him 19 life sentences. I never understood that. I mean, what were they expecting him to live 19 times? It took me a while until I hopped what the pshat is. The pshat is that in order to get parole, now you got to get through. It was different than 1 life sentence and 19 life sentences. So if they tell you, you got 19 life sentences plus 12 years. Right? So you got 19 life sentences plus another 12 years. Oh, wow. By 12 years, it doesn't do much. So, what's more intimidating, Gehenna or hemorrhoids? Gehenna should be, but it isn't. It isn't, because hemorrhoids is more tangible and immediate. And that's what people fear more. People fear the tangible. So the Torah is like, Noach intellectually, he knows there's going to be a flood. He was told, he was a believer. But when does he go into hey, it's actually raining? And it happens to us in life also, where we're told something, I'll believe it when I see it. Then you see it, right? And even worse, when your wife tells you, you better not go out without an umbrella today. It's going to rain. I look outside, the sky is blue, beautiful, 75 degrees, sky is blue. But she's never been wrong. But I'm not schlepping an umbrella. The sky is blue and it's 75 degrees. Now, I know I'm going to get nailed. And I know that as soon as I'm out of it, I know I'm going to get drenched. But I don't believe it. Then I get drenched. Well, she was right again. That sort of thing. I remember my father over show. We once went to a Bears game. Soldiers Field is right off of Lake Michigan. Somebody gave us tickets. Don't worry, we didn't buy. Somebody gave us tickets to a Bears game. And it's like fall. Chicago could get nippy. So my dad says to me, okay, let's take a blanket with. Right, it's going to get cold. I don't need to schlep a blanket. He says, let's take a blanket with. Right, so I said, all right. So he schlepped the blanket with. By about the second quarter of the game, the two of us are sitting there under the blanket. Right, and by about the third quarter, we're looking at each other like, what are we doing here? We're not going to be Moser Nefesh for a football game. Bears actually won, right? Well, this is what we need, but until you get there, you don't believe it. That's what the Torah is telling you. That's the tangibility. Okay.
What gets you hemorrhoids?
Getting angry. Anger. One who gets angry, so he'll have all sorts of Gehenna, like, oh, plus hemorrhoids. No, big deal. No, it doesn't work that way. The work way Gehenna, I'll deal with. Forget that. Whoa, don't want that. Right? And that's why the upgrade is that's what the Stipler says. Because that's human nature. That is human nature. Human nature is that we respond. So Noach, when he feels the war, he goes into the teva. Okay, now, take a look. We have a few more points we have to get to. First of all, Perek Ches Pasuk Hey. I saw a remarkable phenomenon here. Skip on ahead. In order to appreciate this, I want you to take a look at something first. Go to Parshas Bahaloscha. Where is it? Bahaloscha, yeah. In the book of Bamidbar. Yeah. Oh, sorry, page 846. Page 846, Parshas Chukas. Page 846. Now watch this. Vayisu mi Kadesh, the Jewish people leave Kadesh. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael. Everybody see that towards the bottom of the page. Perek Chaf Pasuk Chaf Beis in Bamidbar in Chukas. 5 lines to the bottom. Vayisu mi Kadesh. The Jewish people travel from Kadesh. This is in the 40th year of the wandering of the desert. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael kol ha'ida hor hahar. The Jewish people come to a place called Hor Hahar, which is a small mountain on a big mountain. Vayover Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron behor hor al gvul edom eretz amar Yosef Aaron shall be gathered to his people el Amav. Yosef Aaron el Mav ki lo yavo el Eretz asher nasai. He's not coming to the land I gave to Bnei. So this is where Aaron's going to die. Aaron is going to die and he's going to be buried on a place called Hor Hahar. Okay? Take a look at Perek Ches on page 36 now. Perek Ches Pasuk Daled. It's about 9 lines from the bottom. Exactly 9 lines from the bottom. Dang. Okay? So it says, what do you call it? Do you know that they said Rabbi Yeshua Leib, the Maril Diskin, Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin, who lived in about the late 1900s. So he was a super genius with the Gadol Hador. And he had this ability, they said about it, he could look at a tree and tell you exactly how many leaves are on a tree. Now they say this about autistic kids. The autistic kids could look at a whole like a matchbox and tell you how many matches in there. Some ridiculous what do you call it. So Rabbi Yeshua Leib could look at a tree and tell you how many leaves are. So he was once walking with somebody, and the guy decided to test him. He said, how many leaves are on the tree? He said 719. He said, well, great. How can I possibly check it? So Rabbi Yeshua Leib said, okay, pull some off the tree. So the guy pulls 8 leaves off the tree. Rabbi Yeshua, there's 711. And apparently he had that ability. Now it's not that difficult to understand, by the way, because if I say to you, how many fingers am I holding up? 5. How many fingers am I holding up? No. 9. Okay. And if I hold up 14, some of you will get it, some of you won't. Some of you get it right away. Right? There is that ability. Well, where's the limit? Well, it depends. Why are you able to tell this? Why are you able to tell this? You can see it all at a glance. Well, he was able, Rishon Levi could see the whole tree at a glance. And it's just a question of degree. At some point, you're going to be better than he is, and he's going to be better than you. At some point, there's going to be a limit on each person. Autistic kids could do it. They're ridiculous abilities that they have, right? They have a guy, there's this guy who they flew over in a helicopter, an autistic guy. He was already older, but they flew him over London. You ever seen that? They gave him a helicopter ride over London, and then the guy went and drew an entire picture. I'm like, how did he do it? I mean, I go, okay, so obviously he's wired a certain way. He was wired a certain way. You've seen that picture? It's absolutely ridiculous. The whole diagram of and he didn't miss a building. The whole diagram, right? They're ridiculous. So here it says like this. After the flood and the rains, now you have to understand, by the way, you know what? Let's back up for a second. Right? What happened over here? Right? There was a flood that came from below and came from above. I skipped too much over here. We have to take a look back on the previous page. We skipped this. We have to what do you call it? They go into the Teva. And then it says on page 34, 6 lines from the bottom. By the way, I brought that up because of my rare ability to be able to tell you it's 9 lines from the bottom. That's the only reason I brought it up. This one is 6 lines from the bottom. Test me, right? Test me. So it says, what do you call it? Vayhi amabel arboim yom ala oretz. The Mabul was 40 days it rained. Vayirbu amayim vayisu es teva vayarbe. The teva is lifted up. Vayigberu amayim vayirbu mod al arz vatelech hateva apnei amayim. And what happened? 15, what do you call it? Everything got wiped out. And then, if you take a look, everything is destroyed. So first of all, why is it 40 days that it rains? 40 days and 40 nights it rains. And then we have another answer to another question. Why does it have to be there for a year? I mean, people died right away.
What's there for you?
The floodwaters. Noach was in the Teva for a year.
Well, I mean, Noach and his family needed time to reshape themselves away from everything.
Oh, there's a certain amount of punishment to Noach. There's a certain accountability. Noach's got a certain accountability. Why didn't you influence the people of your generation? And the flood is said to be for a month, for a year. Yeah, but the other people, everybody died immediately. What do we got to do with the people who died? They died as soon as they got flooded. But for Noach, it's a year. Now, why is it 40 days and 40 nights? What's the number 40 in Judaism? What do we find the number 40?
On the mountain.
Is 40 days? Where else do we find number 40?
Years.
In the desert. Where else do we find number 40? The determining factor of the gender of a baby is 40 days. That means a father, you could daven for the gender of a child from the time of conception. You could daven for the gender. You could daven for a boy for 40 days. After 40 days, it's a fait accompli. Obviously, if you have 12 boys, you may be davening for a girl now. Right? Somebody's got to serve them supper. But you have if you want to daven for, you can daven for, after 40 days, it's a done deal. It's a tefillah, you can't daven it. So the gender is determined after 40 days. Right? What else? What else is there 40? The number 40, we find it several times. A mikveh is 40 sa'ah. A mikveh has to be 40 sa'ah. Sa'ah is whatever the measure of water a sa'ah is. Call it a gallon if you want. But it's got to be 40 sa'ah. Where else do you find the number 40? Find it several places more. We said the mountain. Somebody passes away.
40 days?
No, 7. You said Shiva and then you said 30 days. Where else do we find the number 40? Number 40, it says, Malkus Arboim. Person gets 40 lashes, even though it's not really 40. How many is it?
39.
But isn't it strange that it's 39 yet the Torah calls it 40? Why do you, it's 40? The Gemara says, Malkus Arboim Yakeno. The Torah says 40.
It's rounded.
Rounded? You mean, okay, so you deserve 39. We'll just give you one more just to round up. We're just for the sake, just for the heck of it. We'll nail you with the whip one more time. You don't really care, do you? Just so we have a nice round number. That's one, no, there's no halacha like that. The halacha is 39. It's a machlokas in the Gemara. There is one opinion that you give him 40 actually, but we paskin 39. The number that is near 40. There's one other place that I can think of. What's that? Yes, the malachas of Shabbos. And what is it referred to in the Mishnah in Shabbos? What's it called? It's called Arboim Chasar Achad. 40 minus 1. I mean, that's a funny way to say 39. You could have just said 39. If you want to be really cool, so you could say it's 50 minus 11. Haha, now think about that. What? 40 minus 1? I know what 39 is. Say 39. What's the problem? And not only that, in the Mishnah and Pirkei Avos, it talks about the 48 ways to acquire the Torah. It doesn't say it's 50 minus 2. There are 48 ways. It says the Mishnah says 48 ways to acquire Torah. It doesn't say they're 49 minus 1 or 50 minus 2. Why is Shabbos 40 minus 1? Okay, so there's an interesting concept here from the Maharal. The Maharal says the number 40 represents renewal. And something is being started from new. Going into a mikveh, for lack of a better term, I hate to use this expression, but a guy goes into a mikveh. So there's immersion without any clothing. Person goes into a mikveh. What is happening to them when they come out? What does that symbolize? When's the last time something was without clothing, surrounded by fluid? A baby, and the baby in the stomach is a baby is without any clothing and surrounded by fluid. No baby is born like with shoes on or anything. A baby has no clothing on. And they're coming out. A person goes into mikveh, they're born, that's why I say, I hate to use the expression, they're born again, right? There was always some sort of loss of life or life potential associated with the mikveh. A woman who menstruates, that means that month she didn't get pregnant. A man who loses seed, that means it wasn't used to impregnate. It wasn't used to create life. So mikveh, tuma, impurity, always revolves around loss of life. So a person goes into the mikveh, there's new life now. If they're born, it's like a baby coming out of the womb, 40 days. The baby's the embryo. By the way, the word embryo is in Hebrew is vlad. Vlad, vav lamed aleph. What does it equal, Mayor? Vav lamed daled.
36.
40. That the essence of the name, at 40 days, it's considered a done deal. Can't no longer daven you can daven for health up until the baby's born. You can daven, but you can't daven for the gender. 40 is the number of renewal. The Jewish people need a new attitude. They need, the spies come back and mess everything up. So what do they need? A new attitude is needed. How long are they in the desert? 40 years. Moshe Rabbeinu, you worship the golden calf. Now I got to go up. We got to start again. How many days on the mountain? 40 days on the mountain. Everywhere you look, that's what you're going to find. In Egypt, they're supposed to be 400 years. It's just a multiple of 40. It's 1040s. Even though they got out earlier, but it's the decree was 400 years. And Avram Avinu, your faith, there was a flaw in his faith. He asked, how do I know? Give me a sign. Punishment, 400 years of exile. Multiple of 40. Then you get to Malchus. What's the point of whipping somebody? What's the point, Shmuel, since you were the one who volunteered for the extra one? What's the point?
Teach him a lesson.
Teach him a lesson. And what else?
Reduce their
what's the point of ever punishing anybody for anything? Why do you
create
teach them?
a system of normal?
I want to renew your attitude. Right? You were caught speeding, you're grounded for 3 weeks. Why? Your father wants to teach you a new attitude towards a dangerous piece of equipment called a car. Plus he needs the car more often. So he finally found the excuse to get the car at night. Right? But what he really wants is to teach you a new attitude. Malchus is that now. Why is it 40 minus 1? The answer is, there is only so much I could do for you as a person. We could whip a guy 39 times. And the goal is 40. The goal is what 40 represents, that you should renew your behavior. But some of it you got to do on your own. I can't take you all the way to the goal line. You're going to have to do something on your own. I could give you 39, I could give you an ulpan of 39 lashes, which will teach you that you should have a new attitude. But you got to take that step on your own. Something you got to do on your own. And the same thing when it comes to what do you call it? Same thing when it comes to Shabbos. What's the point of Shabbos? Shabbos is renewal. We recharge our battery every week. So the Torah creates a playing field for us. We're going to restrict you in 39 areas. We're going to restrict you so that you now have a wonderful situation. I've created a complete, what do you call it? You have the infrastructure to now recharge your spiritual battery. You can't get involved in writing, and you can't get involved in driving. You can't. All you got to do is do something. But you got to do something. I can't do it for you. I could do you a 40 minus 1. The goal is the 40, but I can't do that last step. You can spend all day Shabbos in bed sleeping. You'll fulfill the 39, but you won't fulfill the 40th because you didn't do anything on your own initiative. So Malchus and Shabbos is also, the theme is 40 because it's renewal, recharge, do something, be productive. But I can't do that for you. The whole world needs to be renewed over here. The renewal of the world is 40 days and 40 nights of rain. Why is it for an entire year? Noach needs to stay in a teva. Why? Because what Avi said, first of all, to infuse a new attitude, this chesed in the world, which we spoke about yesterday. You know, did you ever wonder, Hashem gives Noach an interesting command. The top floor is for what? The middle floor? Bottom floor? They couldn't put in some sort of pipe system to get rid of the waste? You need a floor for the waste of the animal waste. You got to save the stuff. They couldn't make a window, some sort of, what do you call it, that vacuums it out? There was no way to dump it?
Chicken poop is good fertilizer.
What's that?
Chicken poop. It's the best fertilizer.
Why is this fertilizer good? Why is good about this fertilizer? This is the fertilizer going to renew. It's going to fertilize the entire world. Where did the fertilizer come from in the Teva? What was Noach? You know, the Gemara says Eliezer, Avram's servant, he once met Shem. Eliezer met Shem, the son of Noach. He said, what were you guys doing in the Teva the whole time? What were you doing? What was the answer? We were feeding the animals 24/7. That's what they did. It was a tremendous amount of work in the Teva. Imagine, you ever worked in a zoo? No, none of you have. Right? You know these zoo people who work, they feed the animals carefully. You know, the guys who go into the tiger cage, into the puma cage with the meat. Hi, puma. Yeah, I don't know. I can see feeding a llama. I can see, I can see feeding birds. Once you get into cats, I think things get a little touchy over there. Right? Now, you're working in a zoo. Okay, so these guys are, these type of zoo people. They're doing 24 hours a day. You got a lot of animals to feed. That means the animals, the whole point was the chesed. Remember we spoke about that yesterday. So where's the fertilizer coming from? It's the fertilizer that's animals' waste products from food, which is a source of chesed. And that's going to fertilize the world. That's going to inject a new source of chesed into the world. And therefore, it's not that we had nowhere else to put it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have figured out a way to dispose it. They do it on airplanes. Yeah, it could have had some sort of thing that makes a loud flushing noise, just like on the airplanes. And it's perfectly normal. Science is perfectly normal. Loud flushing is perfectly normal. It tells you on the airplanes, so you shouldn't be afraid. They can design a plane, they can design nuclear submarines. They still can't make that thing go without noise on the airplane. That they can, that they haven't worked out yet. There are two things that still haven't gotten, they have not, mankind has not achieved. One of those is that, and the other one is an efficient printing machine in an office. The paper always gets jammed. They still can't figure that out. They could get people that talk about getting people to Jupiter, and they're talking about nuclear submarines that could take out planets, right? But they still can't get paper to stop getting jammed in a copy machine. Still haven't gotten there. Well, one day, then we'll know. Then we'll know we're close to the final redemption. So the fertilizer there, it's being stored for a reason. It's being stored because you're going to refertilize the world with chesed fertilizer. That's what it's being stored for. Now, earlier, where does it say? We skipped it. Where does it say about the? That the earth opened up and the waters came out. Where does it say? Here it is. I'm saying this. On the same page, on page 34, right? I was looking for this spell. I couldn't find this. Look, 3 lines from the top. Because we kind of read this over. We don't realize what happened. Bishna Sheshmel Shana L'chaye Noach, in the 600th year of life of Noach. 4 lines from the top. B'chodesh Hasheni, the 2nd month, B'shiva Asar Yom Hazeh, Nivku Kol Ma'ayanos Tehom Rabba. All of the, how does he translate it? The window, the fountains of the great deep burst forth. Va'arubos Hashemayim, the windows of heavens. Oh, there are no fountains down below, and there are no windows in heavens. This is telling you that waters came up from the depth, mixed in. What was really happening is what we call volcanic, right? Volcanoes, underwater volcanoes. And the heavens just dumped water down from below, from above, and it's all over the place. That means that everything was moving around. The entire world got jumbled around. There were mountains that were there that were erased. There were new mountains were created, and everything was moved or was tossed around. That's how do you explain that in the Arctic? What do they call the tundra? Isn't there something called a tundra? Yeah. What does that refer to? Frozen. Yeah.
Giant block of ice.
Giant block of ice. It sounds so sophisticated. How come they have found their animal skeletons, which are perfectly preserved, and it's animals that couldn't possibly survive in the Arctic. They've even found trees, branches, that sort of, they're perfectly preserved in the Arctic region. The answer is that before any of this took place, the earth was one level of, everything was perfect weather. It was like living in San Diego, right? There was no change in the weather. San Diego is the most consistent weather in the country. The weather report in San Diego is very, very short on the news. And now for the weather, 72 and sunny. Okay, back to you, Jim. That's how it works. There's no change. The world was consistent. All of a sudden, everything is turning around. Ice, snow, everything else, and things are being tossed about. And you got it was ridiculous. And the entire world is erased. Now, Where now? This is what I want to get to in Perek Ches Pasuk Hey, back on page 36. Pasuk Dal. Vatonach hateva b'chodesh hashvi. The teva rests in the 7th month. B'shiva asar yom lachodesh al hore Ararat, on the mountains of Ararat. Take a look at the Targum Onkelos right next to it. Right, Mamish, go to your left. Do you see it? Do you see where I'm pointing to? Targum Onkelos. Go into the Onkelos. Pasuk Daled Onkelos. Everybody see where I'm reading? V'nochas tevosa, the teva rested b'yarcha shvi'ah b'shiva asar yoma liyarcha al ture means mountains, al ture kardu. What does kardu sound like? Any how about Kurdistan? Kardu, Kurdistan. Isn't that where they go looking for where the ark somehow in Afghanistan, Kurdistan? One of the stands, right? I guess the full name is Stanley, but it's really Kurdistanly, right? They just call him Stan for short, but it's Kurdistan, right? Somewhere Kurdistan, Hare Kardu. Don't they go searching in search of Noah's Ark? Did you ever see the movie In Search of Noah's Ark? And they go out looking and that's where it ended up. Now, watch it. This is, I'll show you why I read that earlier about Aaron HaKohen. V'hamayim hayu haloch v'chasar ad hachodesh asiri, ba'asiri be'echad lachodesh nir'u roshei haharim. On the 10th month, on the first day of the month, they saw the top of the mountains. Take a look at Rashi over here. Rashi on Pasuk Hey. Ba'asiri, it's the left column, 6th line. Ze'ov. It's the month of Av. And which day was it? The Pasuk says, on the first day of the 10th month, which means we're talking about what day? Rosh Chodesh Av. What happened on Rosh Chodesh Av, gentlemen? Aaron died. That's Rosh Chodesh Av is Aaron's yahrzeit. So it comes along and says, on the 10th day, Niru Roshei Haharim, the mountains, the top of the mountains. Where was Aaron buried? Hor Hahar. What an interesting coincidence that the pasuk is talking about Aaron's yahrzeit, and that's where the mountains were seen. Where did Aaron die? On the Rosh Chodesh Av, on Hor Hahar. What's the connection? Somehow Aaron sneaks into this over here. What's Aaron got to do with this?
Aaron's dying wish was to see the teva, and God showed it to him. Wow.
Whoa, that sounded so good. Not accurate at all, but it sounded good. It really was impressive. Good. No, there's no source that says that. Well, dang, it was really, really impressive. I'm glad you said it well, right? No, right? What's the connection? Obviously.
Between the man and the wife.
Aaron is the polar opposite of the Dor HaMabul. That it lands here on this day, that means this is what the world is supposed to be about. Olam Chesed Yibana. That was wiped out because of cruelty, selfishness, and the opposite is Olam Chesed Yibana. Even more than that, who is the first Kohen Gadol that we find anywhere mentioned in the Torah? The first Kohen that we find mentioned in the Torah. Think carefully. Who's the first Kohen? Who brings the first? Who's? No, before Avram meets him. Avram meets the first Kohen. Who? Shem ben Noach. Shem, the son of Noach. When Avram comes back from the war, he meets Shem ben Noach. The Torah describes Shem ben Noach as Vehu Kohen Lakel Elyon. He was the Kohen to the higher God. Well, how do you become a Kohen? How do you become a Kohen? How do you become? One way is you become a Kohen if you're anointed. But what if there's a Kohen Gadol dies? Who becomes the next Kohen Gadol?
Son.
If the son is worthy, he becomes the next Kohen Gadol. Well, if Shem ben Noach was a Kohen Gadol, what do you expect Noach to have been? I imagine he was also a Kohen Lakel Elyon. He was also bringing sacrifices. So Noach, the Teva, first of Av, Roshei Haharim. No coincidence. What was on Rosh Hashanah? Aaron HaKohen. That means that the counter force, the entire thing, is to get to a world which is Aaron-like, which is a world that's pursuing peace. It's a world that's a world where people are kind to each other. That's the parallel. Okay, now, there's a big question the commentators ask over here. So Noach is in the Teva, and he wants to know if it's time to leave. So if you take a look at Pasuk Ches, First, he sends out the raven. Vayishalach es ha'orev. And the raven goes out and doesn't find anywhere to go. The Rashi says he was hovering around. He suspected Noach of wanting his wife. That's what the Medrash says, that the raven suspected Noach of wanting his wife. So the Medrash says that there were three creatures that cohabited in the Teva. There were three that cohabited, that broke the ban. Even the animals weren't allowed to cohabit. And the three that broke the ban: the dog, the raven, and Ham, the son of Noach. Okay? There were three, there was a ban. They weren't allowed to cohabit for a year. So there were three. The Orev, the Gemara says, Kol ha-posel b'mumo posel. One who finds a flaw in other people, that means it's really a reflection of his own flaw. If I suspect your motives, that means those are probably my motives. If I see you give tzedakah, I say, the guy probably just wants a little bit of prestige. He wants everybody to see what a tzaddik he is. That's probably why I'm giving tzedakah. If a guy suspects other people, generally what you are is what you project on other people. The Orev is a lowlife. The raven's a lowlife. He broke the ban. He cohabited in the Teva. So he suspects Noach's a lowlife also. He's probably sending me out because he wants my wife. It's obviously a big question. Why would you think that a human being would want to marry a bird? But remember, it's Dor HaMabul where they did those sort of things. But then Noach sends out the Yonah. Now watch this. Pasuk Ches, Vayishalach es hayonah be'ito v'liros hakalu ha'mayim al pnei adama. 3 lines from the bottom. Watch this. Who does the Yonah represent? Who's compared to a Yonah? Jewish people. Jewish people are compared to Yonah. Kanfei Yonah nechpa b'kesef. The Jewish people are compared to a dove. The dove uses its wings to protect, and the Jewish people were protected by Torah and mitzvahs. We're always compared to a dove. Now watch this, 2 lines from the bottom. V'lo motza hayona manoach lekaf raglo. The Yonah did not find rest for its feet. Symbolically, the Jewish people in exile will never find a place to rest. In exile, that's what exile means. You're moving from place to place. So what do the Jewish people do in exile? Vatoshav elav el ha-teva. He returns to the teva. The Jewish people return to the word. What's the word? The word of Hashem. Torah, tefillah. Ki mayim al pnei kol, there's a flood over all the earth. There's a flood over it. There's nowhere we could go. Where can we run for escape? We only have one protection. Our protection is Torah. That's all we get. That's all the protect. That is, the yeshiva is Noach's ark. It's like people say, I got to leave yeshiva, go out to the real world. Could you imagine Cham and Yefes in the Teva? Right? Hey guy, hey bro, when are we going to leave this Teva, get out to the real world? Just take one step out there and see what's happening in the real world. You want to get washed away? You want to get burned by the sulfur from the deep, from volcanic lava, which is all over the place? That's the real world. Symbolically, that we have nowhere to go but the Teva. We got to get into the real world. That's our protection. Kimayim al pnei kol, there's water. We're being flooded by everything in the world. Violence, ugliness, immorality, hefkerus. So what happens when we do that? Vayishlach yodo vayikacha. He stretches his hand and takes it. Symbolically, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will stretch out his hand and take us back when we go back to the Word. Vaviyel level teva. That's what the Parsha say. Okay, now, there's a big question over here. We'll finish with this. There's a big question here. Noach brings an offering. He comes out of the Teva, and the first thing he does is he brings an offering. And on the bottom of page 38, it says, Vayorach Hashem es reach hanichoach. Hashem smells the offering. Vayomer Hashem el libo lo osif lekalel odes ha'adama bavur ha'adam. I'm no longer going to curse the earth, ki yetzer lev ha'adam ramin urav. V'lo osif od lahakos es kol chai kasher tzeh. I'm never going to bring another flood. So the first question is, why not? Hashem makes Noach brings an offering. Hashem smells the offering. A sweet savor. Okay, now obviously Hashem, it's in symbolic terms. Hashem doesn't have a sense of smell. He doesn't need a sense of smell. But then he makes up no more floods. Why not? I mean, between me and you, I could think of some places in the world that need to be flooded. I think we can start with San Francisco. Go to Las Vegas, a few places in the world, get the Jews out and flood them. They could use a flood there. I can think of a few places in the world, Monaco. There are a few places in the world that could be flooded. That certainly deserve to be flooded. Why does Hashem say no? Why? The world's such a wonderful world right now. The New York Times building. I can think of a few places that need to be flooded. A few college campuses, right? Any sort of liberal gathering. I can think of a few places that need to be flooded. Why aren't we flooding places? Why no floods? Only Jewish homes on Erev Shabbos. Right? That's the only time you see water, a flood, something overflows. Only Jewish homes on Erev Shabbos. It's always on Erev Shabbos. When the sink overflows, the toilet overflows, it's always Erev Shabbos. Always Erev Shabbos. It's a skula, right? Why not flood the world? Why not? What changed? Number one. So the world's not flooded for two reasons. Number one, we already have a point of reference. We know that, you know what? If we're bad, this could happen. Remember it once happened? So we've already been intimidated. Because if you have a Torah, you understand that there is a potential for trouble. But it's not going to be a flood. Why not? Because mankind is no longer going to live a life, they were living in a utopia. They were living into the hundreds of years. The Medrash says they had parnasa, they had health, they had everything. There was no aggravation. Now, there was no illness. When a person died, it was just time to die. They died right away. There wasn't a long, drawn-out, painful death. There was nothing to keep people in line, right? They didn't have to go to work. There were no midterms, right? There were no traffic jams in those days. Right? There's nothing to aggravate you. Nowadays, life is full of aggravation. Illness, pardasa. We don't need anything. Don't need anything to keep us in line. Because as soon as a person, chas v'shalom, gets sick, they immediately start like, I got to get my act together over here. As soon as a person's parnasa is lacking, they start davening like crazy. The connection to the Ribono Shel Olam remains. These are people who rebelled. We don't need God. The problem was things were too good. There was no adversity in their life. There was no adversity. So as a result of no adversity, they started sinning. Now, first of all, there's a shorter lifespan. A person, again, I told you, the average lifespan nowadays, Yamesh, don't say, 70 years. V'im b'gvuros shmonim shana. If you're really tough, you make it to 80. Okay, the lifespan nowadays is longer than it was in Europe, pre-war Europe, because of health and all where people are stronger. But at the end of the day, the end of a life is on the horizon all the time. That's enough to keep us in shape. When you live to 950, so like the first 300 years, you party. And you don't think about what's going to be after. I still got a ways to go. But when a person lives to 70 or 80, it's there. It's on the horizon. It's always, and the older you get, the more on the horizon it is. So you're kind of always looking over your shoulder. So you don't need to be intimidated by a flood. Number one. Number two, it's in the merit of Noach. Noach has the merit now to protect the world from a flood. So the commentaries ask, so why didn't he have that merit before the flood? Why didn't Noach's merit protect the world before the flood, but it does after the flood? Good question, right?
He did tshuva or something?
Getting close. Even more than tshuva, he went through a year of suffering. Yisurim, suffering, brings a person to a higher level. He was now on a higher level when he stepped out of the teva. We don't ask for Yisurim, we don't want Yisurim, but it's a fact. When a person goes through Yisurim, by the way, you should know that Yisurim take away a person's sins. If a person ever stuck in traffic, or something happened, a person loses money, a person should say, well, thank you, Ribono Shel Olam, because that just knocked off a few of the Averas have just been removed. Yisurim, the Stipler writes, Yisurim are a precious commodity. We don't want them, but once a person's gone through it, he wouldn't trade it in for anything. Because those Yisurim, there's cleansing. He's been cleansed. So Noach comes out of the teva, he's on a higher level. A, he did chesed. B, he went through tremendous. Think what that's like, gentlemen. You're in a closed box for a year with a bunch of animals.
No mating. That right there.
That right there. Yeah, okay. Besides that, And you're what do you call it? And you're working 24/7 around animals. That's a tremendous suffering. It says that he was bleeding the lion once. He was late bringing the lion his food, so the lion nailed him, and he was bleeding and he was coughing up blood. It wasn't a party. Like, hey, let's go for a ride in the ark. What's it called? A cruise. Oh, I don't know, a cruise. All right.